Welcome to another 2014 Comp1 Programming Exam Solution tutorial. In these set of tasks we're going to be looking at gameplay, and don't forget that I'm going to run through some tasks here now and then we'll be looking at solutions in another video. So the tasks that are most likely, I think if you've spent any time looking around this code it should scream out to you that changing it to higher or lower rather than just higher yes no is quite a likely one. To allow the burning of a card. Both these rules are in the original Brucey Play Your Cards Right and are both quite nice additions to the game, or changes to the game. The idea that we can have some kind of joker, and of course this could be one of the two jokers that normally exist in a pack of cards, or quite often people use an ace as being high or low. And then changing the rules about same rank card. They're a bit unsatisfactory at the moment. If we've got higher or low, it becomes very unsatisfactory. So I think there's some scope there. Particularly, I think if you understand this, if something else came up about assessing card value, you'd be very, very happy with changing it. And then at the end, we want to look at how the game ends, which is a little bit abrupt at the moment. There's some general strategies with all of this sort of gameplay stuff. I mean, obviously the play game sub-procedure should be one that you are absolutely intimately sort of knowledgeable about and should almost be able to converse about without really having it in front of you. There is going to be something that happens with that procedure in the exam, and it's the heart of the program. The general strategy for making any change will be changing the user dialog, and that's predominantly through get choice from user. Making sure that the validation for that still works. This little block of code here, I'm going to refer to as the correct guess logic. It's not referred to that in the code, but I think it makes it a little bit easier for me to refer to. This is the crucial have you guessed correctly bit of code, and that's almost certainly going to have to be changed. I actually don't think we ought to be changing this higher is next card higher procedure, because that's actually a really, really nice procedure that does exactly what it says on the tin. I'm worried that if we start changing it and leave the name as is next card higher, it no longer has sort of integrity as a named procedure, and that's something the exam board don't like. It's something I don't like, so I'm not too keen on changing that procedure and leaving it as that name. Of course, having extra selection that sits over the top of this or that's nested within this would be quite a good strategy as well, and there's a few things that I've looked at where that's makes sense. It really makes sense rather than just trying to cope with it as one Boolean statement. Higher or lower. This is pretty much exactly the same as the previous general strategy. The idea that you change the user dialog, change the validation so it's H and L not Y and N, don't touch that, and just alter the correct guess logic so that's if they've said higher and next card is higher is true, then it's right. If they'd said lower and next card higher is true, then they've not guessed right. It's very, very, very simple change. I think this is one that it's worth you having a little practice with your screenshots. In fact, all of these are worth practicing your screenshots, making sure that you've got a flavour for how you're going to capture testing of this logic, because the way the console window sort of fills up isn't that nice. Don't forget you can drag the console window longer. Don't forget you can take multiple screenshots. Just be aware that how you evidence that, I think, needs a bit of practice. Allow burning of a card. So you've got to actually add an option from the get choice from user, not just making a few little changes. You need to add to the validation, not just change it. You also definitely need to add an extra or to the if statement, or I think better still, add a if statement that nests over the top of the whole thing. So I'll just show you what I mean. Look at this little section of code here. Which elements of this, if we're going to burn a card, actually need to be run? Well, we do need to display the next card. We don't want to improve the score. We don't need to bother assessing that. We don't need to bother assessing this at all, although we do need to make sure that we have that statement somewhere. Next card equals last card. So having an if statement, I don't want to do the solution now, but having an if statement sort of starts there, has all of this in the else, and then just has probably this statement here in the other half, the other branch of the selection, is probably all you need to do. That would be very, very, very neat, and it would mean that only the code that absolutely has to be run is run. Have a little play with that and see how efficiently you can get that to run. Because this burning of a card is quite a nice thing, and it's slightly different to the ways of doing it. But you've got to make sure that you do still get the next card, but you don't bother assessing the guess or add to the score. I think that's a good task. Ace is high or low. I think you could solve either with a correct guess logic or by whacking a if statement similar to the burning of a card, because basically you're always going to win. So it's a little bit like burning a card, but you are going to increase the score. Now this is one of the more interesting ones, the same value cards, because there's a few things you can do with it. Using the rank order of the cards is quite nice, because in terms of assessing the is card higher, well, that means you've got to add an extra statement to that particular procedure. As you can see at the moment, only the rank is assessed. So the idea that you would add something to this to say, oh, if the ranks are the same, then basically perform this exactly same strategy, but looking at the score, not the score, the suit. Crucially, we're already passing the whole of last card and next card, not just the ranks. We could have just passed the ranks into this as integers, but we haven't. We've passed the whole cards. The more I think about it, the more this is screaming to include the suit. Why bother passing the whole card? Why not just pass the rank if we're only going to assess the rank? Interesting. Definitely make sure that you can add an assessment of which suit is higher to is next card higher. The other lovely thing, actually, if you're going to change that suit, nothing else needs to be changed. Just this. This drawn card always wins, but without scoring, is identical to burning a card. But rather than the user inputting a B, it's effectively if the next card equals last card, then you perform exactly the same procedure as burning. If you allow it to score, then it's exactly the same as a joker. So if you've already solved the burning and the ace is high or low, then this second option is still fairly easy. This gives you one life malarkey. So basically, you're allowed to guess wrongly once on a drawn card. It's a bit fiddly and a bit faffy, and it's just adding some extra complications to the code. Generally speaking, the exam board haven't really gone for those sorts of strategies. But you could add a new variable called lives, and in fact then you could have as many lives as you wanted to, couldn't you? And the idea that for either a drawn card, or of course you could have you could add a life for an incorrect guess on a higher or lower rank. I mean, you could use this lives thing. So actually, I'm warming to the idea now a little bit. But the idea that you've got a life which effectively gets stepped down, decreased down for each incorrect guess, or each time, for each incorrect guess. That incorrect guess could just be limited to drawn cards, or it could be always. I might look at that in a bit more. I might set you a different pest where you've got lives. You can have 3 lives or whatever. I'm warming to it, considering I didn't like it when I originally created this. Changing the game ending. Okay, so at the moment, if you get all the way through to 52 cards, you score 52, which means 52 is the biggest score you can possibly achieve. But there's no reason why we couldn't reshuffle the deck and continue. Fairly simple procedure. All of the code for doing that already exists in the game somewhere else. So the idea that we could just call the shuffle deck, or if you've obviously created a new shuffle system, one of those. I feel like there might be something else that they could do with the game ending, but I can't spot it. So could you all have a little look at how the game ends? And if you've got some suggestions, throw them my way. So you've got at least 5 tasks. You need to really make sure that you've got the play game procedure and how the game's played and the flow of the code completely within you, completely sort of you're in the zone on that, because it's the lifeblood of this game, and it is going to come up in the exam somewhere or other. Of course, the exam board really enjoy trying to find challenging problems for you, and these are all sort of fairly straightforward, so get these absolutely nailed, and that should leave you ready if the exam board throws something a bit left field at you. And I hope you enjoy working them out, and look out for my solutions coming very soon.